Welcome into OutKick the show. I'm your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope all of you are having fantastic Thursdays, wherever you may be across this great country or this great land. I'm about to head out to Morgan Wallen, which should be a lot of fun. He's taking over the main football stadium for the Tennessee Titans. Should be fun. Morgan Wallen, by the way, big OutKick fan, big SEC fan in general. So should be fun to check that out. Tomorrow, no show because I am leaving as soon as the radio show is over to drive to Louisville, Kentucky, because I will be at the Kentucky Derby. Buck and I are going to be there with our wives and with Julie Talbot, our awesome boss at the Clay and Buck show. She is a Kentuckian. So she is taking us to the Kentucky Derby on Saturday. I am looking forward to that, despite the fact that, got to be honest with you, mint julep, most overrated alcoholic drink on the planet. And I say that as someone who likes bourbon and theoretically likes mint and sugar. The combo is not as good as it should be. It ain't good at all. I've got a picks for you for PrizePicks, which does fabulous work. I also brought out an old school shirt for everybody. I don't know how many of you remember this. It was in my drawer, and I thought, I haven't worn this in forever. This was the shirt that we sold a ton of copies of after the First Amendment and boobs controversy back in, I think it was 2017. It's now been 7 years. I got a lot of T-shirts, but it's a picture of Constitutional Hall, I think, of the great debate surrounding the Constitution back in, 1783, if I'm remembering my history well enough. And it's all the founding fathers debating. And then I added one of them saying, I don't know if you can see it. Let me see if I move this. That'll work. You may be able to see it. Anyway, I'm moving here. And one of them is saying, and boobs. So this is an OG OutKick show. We sold a ton of these. And if I remember correctly, we donated a bunch of money that we made off of these to anti-breast cancer. So anyway, that is the story behind this shirt. I haven't worn it forever, but that's why I've got it on today. We made a nice donation in favor of protecting boobs to the breast cancer community. If I remember back in the day, it's been 7 or 8 years ago. All right. But in the meantime, I want to tell you, get in on the playoff action and win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks as you and the world's best players take the game to a whole new level during the basketball, the hockey, and the Major League Baseball season. The postseason, certainly, in basketball and hockey. PrizePicks even offer injury insurance if your entries stay in play. Even if one of your players gets injured, you can still win. And for the games out there, you can have a player that exits the game in the first half, doesn't return in the second. For a basketball game, PrizePicks has your back, doesn't count that as a loss. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, enormous selection of player stat types. That is what makes PrizePicks the #1 fantasy sports app. I'm going to give you picks a little bit later in the show, but in the meantime, download the app today. Use code OutKick for a first deposit match of up to $100. That's code OutKick on PrizePicks. First deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. PrizePicks.com, code OutKick. Get hooked up while you can. All right, bunch of different stories that are out there. By the way, look forward. I bet I'll meet a bunch of you at the Morgan Wallen concert tonight, and I bet I will meet a bunch of you on Saturday at the Kentucky Derby. So come up, say hi. Let me know how amazing you find OutKick, Clay and Buck, everything that we do. Always good to meet you guys, especially because, there's nobody in this room. I do a show for millions of people on radio, nobody there. I do hits for Fox News and Fox Business, millions of people watching, just me and the show. Watching right now with you, millions of people consuming OutKick every single month. It's just you and me right now. Nobody else in the room. So it's always good to meet people in person. Joe Biden has come out and finally said, hey, anti-Israel attacks, not good. He's come out very strongly against race. I'm joking, obviously, against racism. and against violent protests that break the law, finally, after 10 days of silence. A lot of talk. I told you yesterday I wanted to dive into this story because I think it's fascinating, the sports media mess that is going on right now, but I didn't want to try to pivot from telling you what was going on the campuses and why, by the way, several of those clips have gone viral on a variety of different social media platforms. So thank you for spreading those as you have. But it was hard to transition from, hey, American way of life is under assault. Now, hey, let me talk about sports rights and what the NBA television contract is going to look like. It was just a challenge. Charles Barkley, Inside the NBA, what's the future of that show? Brittany Griner is evidently on the front of the New York Times Magazine. Huge profile piece on her. I've got thoughts on that. The Trump trial and how it is impacted in the protest in terms of the way that people are covering it. ESPN Bet, go figure, is a huge failure, as I told you it was likely to be. But I want to start with a significant story that is going on, and I want to work through it with you. And I need to write on this, and I may have some time on Sunday if I get back late at night from the Kentucky Derby on Saturday. I'm going to try to take some time and write a long-form piece on this. But it's really an intriguing time in media, in particular in sports media. And I'm going to try to make sense of how the NBA television rights has turned into a really interesting representation of a fascinating time in media overall. So let me start here. This is a great study if you're a business person, if you're a kid out there and you're interested in a sports business paper to write. I've been talking about this for really about a decade. And it's interesting because about a decade ago, in 2014 or so, could be a year on either side, but around 2014, the overall cable and satellite bundle peaked. Over 100 million people had subscribed, and the business was the greatest business in the history of media. Whether you were Comcast, whether you were Fox, whether you were Disney, whether you were Paramount, whether you were Warner Brothers, CNN, HBO, whatever the entity was that you want to point to, the cable and satellite bundle peaked in 2014 with the overall number of subscribers that were out there. I wrote an entire book that really kind of told you this whole story, and I would still encourage you to go read it because I think I was right on basically everything that I said in that book, Republicans Buy Sneakers Too. And really, I walked through the overall collapse that we were seeing of the bundle and how I thought it was setting off a panic in the world of media, but that sports media was a big part of this. And overall, you've seen, by and large, many different sports leagues have to recognize that making the same amount of money is basically a win now. And so we'll see what the NBA ends up getting. I think they're maybe going to double the number that they got in the last deal on average. But remember, thanks to Joe Biden's inflation, if you're not going up 30 or 40%, maybe even 50% back to when they signed this deal, you're actually losing ground. There's not enough talk about this, but every time you hear, oh, the stock market just set a new high or something like that, really that's not true. You have to be up 30 or 35% since Joe Biden came into office, just since then, based on inflation, to actually be making money at all. But that's a whole nother story. 2014, cable and satellite bundle peaks. Now we're talking about the collapse of the cable and satellite bundle. And I want to give you a few examples, but Warner Brothers Discovery is a perfect example of this. If you look right now, literally as I am talking to you live, Warner Brothers Discovery, the business overall has completely collapsed. It is down under $8 a share. And to put that in context, when was it? Let me go back a few years on my scale here. Warner Brothers Discovery was around $70 a share 3 years ago. So just about 3 years ago, Warner Brothers Discovery, around $70 a share, the company has lost 90% of its market cap in the last 3 years. Paramount is up big today because it looks like there may be some sort of battle that is going to be fought over who ends up owning Paramount. But by and large, the stock has been a disaster for the past several years, as nobody seems really that willing to make a substantial run at anywhere near what Paramount used to be. There's a battle going on over who's going to own Paramount, but just as I told you that its stock has collapsed, its stock price was over $70 a share. It has lost about 85% maybe of its overall value in the past 3 years too. Disney is down substantially. It's down about 50%, it's basically the same price it was a decade ago. Fox has done well because Rupert Murdoch decided to sell off so many of its assets to Disney near the peak of the market. But my point on this is sports leagues for a long time were able to increase the amount of money they made because the cable and satellite bundle was such an incredible offer. Now the NBA is going to the market, and Paramount's collapsed, Warner Brothers Discovery's collapsed, Disney has collapsed. A lot of the bidders are falling apart. The Wall Street Journal, unless things have changed, has said that ESPN's going to continue to pay way more than even it had past paid, going to go up $1 billion in what it's paying, and it's going to get way less. Meanwhile, they're saying Amazon is going to come in, and then Warner Brothers Discovery or Comcast is going to get the other part of this. Now, this is fascinating. You may have seen me tweet about this. And again, I need to write long form about this. ESPN's business profitability is going to basically cease to exist based on what they're paying for the college football playoff and on what they're going to have to pay for the NBA. Profitability is going to vanish, okay? They're desperate. They're afraid that their profitability will decline even faster if they don't do it. So that's why ESPN is doing this. Also worth noting, all of these companies were dealing with cable and cord cutting collapsing. And simultaneously, as bad of a threat as that would have been to their business, they also decided that they should get into the streaming market and try to compete with Netflix. And instead, they're losing money hand over fist. Netflix is still the only company to make money off of streaming. Disney has lost, for instance, $11 billion so far on its streaming service. Paramount's lost money hand over fist. Warner Brothers has lost money hand over fist. So they saw suddenly that their cable and satellite business was collapsing, and they actually panicked and decided to start a streaming service to compete with Netflix, and it actually led to their business collapsing even faster. It's a very fascinating study that one day will be written about what I've been talking about for the past decade. So Disney, through ESPN, is going to wildly overpay for the NBA, even though ratings are collapsing, because they're terrified their business is going to collapse even faster if they don't have the NBA. Amazon is actually an intriguing decision. I don't disagree with the Amazon decision in general because they're in a different dynamic. And let me explain what I mean. And again, I'm going to write long form on this, so I'm kind of giving you a little bit of a synthesis as I see it. Amazon now has Thursday Night Football. They've got some regional sports. They're now reportedly going to add the NBA. I actually think that can make sense for them, even though I think they're wildly overpaying, because their business model is very different. They already have Amazon Prime streaming. They make most of their money off cloud computing, but they may be playing a long game here where their idea is we're going to be able to target individuals who are watching our games based on their Amazon Prime login and know exactly what ads to serve them. So, for instance, when we had babies in this household, young kids in diapers, we bought a lot of diapers. Amazon was always delivering diapers to our house. Instead of serving me up an ad to try to convince me that I should go buy, retirement advice. They would know that I'm a ways away from retirement back in the day. They would have known that I had a baby in the house, and they would have served me baby diaper ads or food for baby ads, Gerber, whatever it is, the foods, the Similac, the things that babies need, instead of a generic ad that everybody saw on CBS or Fox or NBC. They're on Thursday Night Football able to, at that time, target the Travis household, which had babies, and sell me baby ads. Right now, we have, unfortunately, we got cats, all right? My kids and my wife wanted cats. We buy cat food from Chewy, I think it is, constantly arriving at our house. They could sell me a cat food advertisement, and that might make more sense than a generic ad. They know that I gamble. They could use gambling ads. So Amazon's going to be able to individually target you based on what they know that you buy, and that's going to, in theory, lead to the ability to sell for a way higher rate because the ads are going to be specifically targeted. That's a game changer. Okay, so I understand the Amazon idea. I actually think Amazon is going to buy a sports gambling company at some point in the next few years. I think it would make a ton of sense for them to buy FanDuel, DraftKings, MGM, whoever it is, and go all in with one partner because they know exactly what state you're in. They know exactly whether you watch sports gambling or not if you're an Amazon Prime viewer, and they would be able to target you more effectively and efficiently in that way. So to me, Amazon is a different paradigm. You can argue that maybe they could unlock value that doesn't exist by being able to overpay for the NBA. I don't think the same is true at all. As I just said, ESPN's desperate. They're wildly overpaying in an existing marketplace that makes no sense. And on top of that, I think the even more interesting battle here is what's going on reportedly with Comcast, which owns NBC, going head-to-head against Warner Brothers. I think Comcast sees taking the NBA away from Turner as a knockout punch to the Turner network, which would potentially save them billions of dollars in not having to pay as much to carry the Turner networks. They might even say, we don't even need Turner, TBS. We don't need any of your networks. We're going to lowball you because we took the NBA away from you. That's a story that isn't being told. Maybe it's even crazier than that. Comcast might be seeing it as an opportunity to maybe buy all of Warner Brothers Discovery for a rack rate low price and roll it in as a part of their overall brand to the extent it was allowed to do. I think that's possible. I think there's a play there where it's not even about the NBA, it's about the larger media battle. Also, remember they have announced Fox, ESPN, and Warner Brothers Discovery have a new partnership where they are going to roll out their own sports streaming offer that is supposed to be available this fall. If Warner Brothers doesn't have the NBA, what are they actually bringing to that partnership? Comcast and CBS are not a part of that sports offering. This is an opportunity to cut the legs out of Warner Brothers Discovery. Again, I'm going to write on it longer form, but this is not just about the NBA. The NBA may be benefiting because it's a small player in a much bigger media war. That's what's going on here. I think it's worth thinking about. Also tying in. So I'm going to write on this long form, hopefully Sunday. If not, I'm going to try to get it written before I leave town at the end of next week again. So that's what's going on. A lot of discussion about, okay, what would happen to inside the NBA? Charles Barkley, Ernie Johnson, Kenny Smith, and Shaq. What I think is the best sports halftime show, best sports analysis show that is out there right now. Well, there's now a report that Barkley would get out of his contract. I think it would be the best thing ever for the Inside the NBA crew if they actually were free agents. Because then you could have ESPN, Amazon, and NBC all bidding to try to get those guys to come to their network and be their NBA analyst stars. They might make 4 or 5x what they would otherwise make. Remember, when Rupert Murdoch bought Fox away, I think it was from CBS back in the day, the first thing he did was go get John Madden to make the legitimate argument, hey, we're going to be as good or better than the people we hired away. Madden got a king's ransom because Rupert Murdoch wanted him to be the face of the Fox coverage. Amazon, NBC, if they pulled him away, and ESPN would all be bidding for the Barkley Inside the NBA show. And Barkley might get $30, $40 million a year, and all those other guys are going to get paid a ton too. If I were Barkley, or if I were Barkley's agent, I would be rooting for Turner to lose the NBA because I actually think his payday is way more substantial if that happens. Just factoring that in. For those of you who love that show, maybe more than you actually like the NBA, and I certainly understand that, I don't think it will be going away. I think all those guys are going to get the opportunity to get paid a king's ransom. Another story that's going on right now. Brittany Griner got a front page New York Times Magazine profile piece. This is, to me, indicative of how broken media is. She is, according to their piece, a huge victim because she was arrested in Russia. But she broke Russian law. She's not a hero. The only reason she's getting profiled is because she's black and gay. If the New York Times actually cared about doing legitimate journalism, they would have a front page New York Times Magazine article on the 5 American hostages that are still being held by Hamas and how unbelievably difficult it has been for the 5 families' parents to have had their innocent kids held hostage now for over 6 months, despite the fact that they did absolutely nothing wrong at all. You can hope that Brittany Griner wouldn't go to prison in Russia while understanding that she broke the law and was an idiot and put herself in position to become a prisoner. Russia is holding the Wall Street Journal reporter. They say he did nothing wrong, the Wall Street Journal. They're holding Paul Whelan. He says he did nothing wrong, former Marine. Brittany Griner admits that she broke the law in Russia and was traveling with drugs. She was being an idiot. The only reason she got saved is because Biden's entire identity politics coalition demands that she be a victim because she was black and a woman, even when she wasn't a victim at all. She broke the law, and Russia was penalizing her. Meanwhile, there are 5 100% innocent, did nothing wrong prisoners, including one of them who had his arm blown off with a grenade, American citizens that are still being held hostage by Hamas, and no one will even talk about them because it requires acknowledging that Hamas is evil. And the left wing in this country doesn't want to acknowledge that Hamas is evil. So they make people like Brittany Griner, who aren't even victims, front page stories in the New York Times Sunday magazine. They put her on the cover, and they still won't even talk about the 5 actually innocent, 100% did nothing wrong, didn't violate anything other than being Jewish American citizens being held still by Hamas, probably underground, at least one of whom lost his arm in a grenade attack. The failure of the media to make this a story because it would make Joe Biden look bad and incompetent even more so than he actually is, to me, is indefensible. I wasn't alive for the 1980 president. Well, I guess I was a baby in the 1980 presidential campaign. But I know historically the media blamed Jimmy Carter every day for the hostages that were held in Iran, the Americans that Iran would not allow to leave. Why is almost no one in the media covering the 5 American hostages held by Hamas right now for over 6 months that Joe Biden can't get brought home? The answer is because it makes Biden look bad. But the fact that they're covering Brittany Griner, who Biden bent over backwards to get out of Russia, even traded the merchant of death for her because she was black and gay, and his identity politics coalition demanded that he go and get her freed, even though she admitted to committing a crime. They won't even cover the 5 American hostages, to say nothing of Gersovich, the Wall Street Journal reporter who did nothing wrong, Paul Whelan, the former Marine who did nothing wrong. They're still being held in Russia. They just happen to be white guys. That's not good enough. I'm not even kidding about this. If Evan Gersovich, the Wall Street Journal reporter, were black, gay, and a woman, he would be free already. Biden would have gotten him out. Not even joking about that. He didn't even commit a crime. He's being held hostage. He would have already been out of Russian prison if he were black, female, and gay. Problem is, he's a white guy. Problem with these 5 Jewish hostages is they're being held and they're Jewish, and Joe Biden can't talk about them a lot because it would make Hamas look bad, and he needs Arab voters in Dearborn, Michigan to show up and vote for him, or else he's not going to win re-election. Biden ran for president claiming that because of what happened in Charlottesville, he had to restore the soul of the nation. It's not true. Biden only condemned Charlottesville because he saw the anti-Jewish protesters there as likely Trump supporters. The people who hate Jews on campuses now, at UCLA, at my alma mater, George Washington, at Columbia University, all over the country, they're Democrat voters. They're left-wingers. They're saying the Jews are colonizers and oppressors, and Biden won't speak out against them, despite the fact that we're seeing hundreds, if not thousands, of Charlottesvilles all over the country right now. And by the way, according to the data, about half of the protesters aren't even college students. They're just left-wing, anti-American organizers trying to destroy America. I saw the picture of the George Washington statue at the Central Quad. I went to GW, scholarship kid there. I probably walked by that George Washington statue 1,000 times, maybe more than that, during the time that I was a student at GW. I never would have believed that GW, which has a population of Jewish students, I think it was even higher when I was there. Even today, according to Hillel, it's around 30% of the student body is Jewish. I never would have believed that pro-Palestinian protesters would deface that statue of George Washington. When we clip this and share it on social, it's gone viral what they've done to that George Washington statue. It's an embarrassment that the George Washington University administration is allowing this to happen. But also, what do the 30% of campus students who are Jewish think about this? I can't believe that this is actually taking place. And I think it's an utter failure of Joe Biden. Speaking of protest, 2 other thoughts on viral videos. I shared one, I believe it was from Portland, of a bunch of the loser protesters running with bike helmets on their head and a cut up garbage can as a shield, getting absolutely wrecked by police. These are losers. Let's just call them what they are. These are loser, low testosterone, beta, left-wing bitches pretending that they are revolutionaries. They are complete and total losers in reality. And if you watch that video clip going viral of them getting wrecked as they're trying to run away from, whatever they're trying to do from the police, they're playing the worst game of paintball ever. They are dressing up like they are in some way revolutionaries. It's cosplay, costume play. They might as well dress up as Jedis, or they might as well be playing a fake game of Quidditch. These people are shameful. They should be ridiculed. Frankly, they should be kicked out of the school for violating all of the rules by trying to set up tents on campus. The fact that anyone is defending these people, as I said yesterday, is a sign of American educational failure. Finally, circling back a little bit, I think I forgot to mention this. Oh, I've got one other protester take. Did you see? A lot of these are going viral. I mentioned the loser guys. I believe it was at Portland that Fox News had video of them kind of running around like crazy, being like cosplay revolutionaries, costume play revolutionaries. I mentioned the GW statue and how awful and ridiculous it is that we've allowed that to take place at all. All of this, as you actually break it down, is absolutely indefensible. I know I still need to give the team is texting me. I still need to give you my take on the PrizePicks pick for tonight with the games that are going on. But as I kind of scroll through and see all of this, I just come back to the positive on the protester front that these guys at UNC Chapel Hill, they have sort of galvanized much of America by holding up the American flag. And the final thing that I wanted to say on the protesting front is I think Trump should have a rally in North Carolina in the near future. I know they had to cancel one for weather recently, and he should bring all of these UNC fraternity guys on the stage with him. In a positive way, they now have raised over $300,000, I believe it is, to support these guys and throw them an incredible party. I think Trump, John Rich, friend of mine, has said that he'll show up and play at that party. I think this has the potential to be an epic rally mixed with a party. Trump should lean into it, bring those guys on stage, and throw that party, a pro-America party in North Carolina that I believe would echo. And to the extent that there is any doubt about who's going to win North Carolina, I think the Palestinian flag being raised over Chapel Hill has pretty much eliminated the doubt about who's going to win North Carolina. Joe Scarborough said it this morning on MSNBC. I rarely agree with Scarborough, but he said, look, this is awful for Democrats, and I do think he's right about that. Okay, let me give you my picks tonight. PrizePicks.com. Use the code OutKick. Embiid, more than 11 rebounds. Jalen Brunson, less than 33.5 points. This is PrizePicks.com. You can get up to $100 by using the code OutKick. Dante DiVincenzo, more than 11.5 points. And Brook Lopez, more than 1.5 three-pointers made. That is a 10-1 payout. We won with last week's pick. We're going to try to we got 3 out of 4 right. These 4, one more time. Joel Embiid, more than 11 rebounds. These are games going on tonight. Jalen Brunson, less than 33.5 points. Dante DiVincenzo, more than 11.5 points. And Brook Lopez, more than 1.5 made three-pointers. That hits at 10-1. ESPN Bet. Data out on ESPN Bet. It is a disaster and not working for ESPN or Penn. Announcement came out of earnings. Penn is down 10% today. The stock price of Penn down 10%, down nearly to at a 2-year low for sure. I think it's a low going all the way back to when COVID shut down sports. Stock price went, I bought it then, it went down to like $3 or $4 a share. at that point in time, then surged to over $100 a share. Now it has collapsed since then. What's going on? I told you. The top three picks companies out there right now. FanDuel 1, DraftKings 2. This surprises people. PrizePicks in third place now. MGM is in fourth place, roughly, in the picks market. What you are seeing is ESPN Bet is dead on the vine. I told you it wasn't going to work. Lots of people don't like Barstool. They rip Barstool. I think that's unfair. I told you at the time, those guys, Portnoy and crew, went balls to the wall promoting Penn, and Penn didn't have the money or the resources to compete on the same level with FanDuel and DraftKings. And as a result, Penn panicked, sold basically Barstool back to Portnoy for nothing, and suddenly said, oh, ESPN's going to be our salvation. And I told you it wasn't going to work because the people who like Barstool more than people like ESPN. And if Penn couldn't win with Barstool, that's a better brand for gambling than ESPN is. I'm sorry, it is. And what you're seeing is ESPN's failing, and a lot of people are coming back around. The stock is down like 50%. I told you can go back and watch. I said this was desperate. It wasn't going to work. People were not going to sign up for ESPN Bet. And I was right. Stock market just now catching up to it. Stock is down 10% today by itself. Headline, Penn Entertainment misses quarter one estimates after ESPN Bet integration drags on results. What did they say happened? The CEO said revenue was down. Think about that. They spent all this money with ESPN and they lost money. The ESPN Bet business helped to lead to a loss of $200 million in quarter one. Company-wide, a mess. They said ESPN Bet was financial results impacted by lower than expected hold and spend per user. It didn't work. It ain't going to work. ESPN in trouble. Nobody likes the brand. They might watch the games. They don't like the brand. They have lit themselves on fire, and Penn stepped right into the fire. They should have stuck with Barstool. They should have kept with that game plan. They would have been more successful. Instead, they hopped in bed with ESPN, and now they're on fire too, and not in a good way. Love all of you. I'll be back Monday. Did I say Monday? I can't remember what I said off the top. I'll be back Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week, and then I'm on the road again for a bunch of days. But I'll see you on Monday. Have great weekends. I'm headed to Morgan Wallen. Then I'm headed to the Kentucky Derby. This has been OutKick the show. DBAP, unless you need to SBAP.